Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Talking Literature. I'm your host, Faith Yu, and today we have three special guests here with us. Please welcome Malaysia's number one playwright, Miss Rubini Sitampara. And next, we also have Southeast Asia's beloved and talented award-winning film director, Miss Sri Nagalakshmi. And last but not least, Malaysia's Novelist of the Year, Miss Nurul Shuhaida. Please welcome our wonderful and lovely ladies of the night. We're so happy that you can join us today. Now, as you know, every week our viewers send in their questions on anything related to literature. Then we pick one special viewer's questions to feature them on the show. And our guests will help us to answer them. This week's question is from our viewer, Dr. Nurul. She is a senior lecturer from the University of Science Malaysia, teaching English language and literature. Her question of the week is, how does Jit Murad'S play Spilt Gravy on Rice use humor to critique various facets of Malay identity? Well, thank you, Dr. Nurul, for your very interesting question. But before we begin, let us get to know a little bit more about the play and the genius who was behind the whole thing. Jit Murad. His real name is actually Aziz Mirzan bin Murad, but he's more commonly known as Jit Murad. So Jit is a Malaysian actor, director, and playwright. Ever since he was 4, Jit had a love for storytelling, and he's gifted with quick wit. He often uses humor as a trademark for his work. Humor being second nature to Jit, he has written many skits and done countless stand-ups. Jit is considered one of the most talented playwrights in Southeast Asia. His stage production, Spilt Gravy on Rice, it won the Best Original Script Award and the Audience Choice Award for the Best Play at the Cameroonian Arts Awards. Now, this play, Spilt Gravy on Rice, actually made its debut in 2002 at the Actors Studio Bangsar, Kuala Lumpur. The story centers around Papa and his 5 children, an educated upper-middle-class Malay family. Papa called his children one day to come together to the house because he felt that his time was almost up. So as the play unfolds, we slowly get to know the siblings and their problems that they face in their lives, and also their problems with Papa. Now, Bapa also recalled some of his memories with his children and his many wives, yes. The climax of the play was when Bapa passed away and possessed each of his children, revealing some memories and dark secrets from the past. Now, when we look at humor, the strange thing is actually that although it is something universal to every human being, humor is very difficult indeed to define and explain. But we all know that laughter is a natural biological process for everyone. The Oxford English Dictionary defines humor as the quality of action, speech, or writing which excites amusement, oddity, comicality, and even fun. So in simple terms, humor is anything that people say or do that is funny and usually makes others laugh. As much as we see humor as casual, it actually takes a certain amount of wit to create humor. Humor comes in the form of verbal humor, such as jokes, puns, anecdotes, and other nonsense verses, especially in literature, like those of Lewis Carroll's work. And then there is another form of humor, which is nonverbal humor, or also called practical joke. This type of humor would be very much situational. As the name suggests, this involves jokes that involves actions, be it in stupid actions by humans or fictional characters, and also when someone does something funny. Unfortunately, as funny as something is, when we dissect it, humor is dead. However, this is what we are going to do today. So let us put on our thinking caps and dissect humor in Jit Murad's play, and hopefully still have some laughs left. Please welcome our guests for today to present on this topic.
Thank you so much for inviting me over today. It's such a pleasure to be here. So when we talk about humor, it can be clearly seen in the overall theme of the play, which is complexity between individuality, family, and social dynamic. It's quite ironic because when we talk about complexity, we always imagine it in a very bad or a sad way, right? But that's not the case with Jit Murad's play. He used humor to address the complexities that is going on throughout the whole play, and he does this by showing the resistance of Malayness among the members of a modern Malay family. The purpose he uses humor is as a satire. He used humor to move away from the typical portrayal of a Malay community. Like, for instance, in many dramas and plays, they are shown as obedient, modest, being very faithful to their religion, respecting elders, and following the customs set by the society, and so on. But for now, we would definitely know that that's not the case with Bapak's family. The humor used in this play is very satirical to critique the Malay individuals that are resisting their Malayness. It makes us laugh, and at the same time, it makes us think, and is very thought provoking in that sense. We, as readers or as viewers, we begin to think if all these characters, if they are really Malay and whatever they are doing is right or wrong to them or to the society. So Bapak's family is definitely not the ordinary Malay family that we always see. He himself is a very complex character because he is an educated person, but he has so many affairs and also wives, and his children are also very contrastive. They are born from five different mothers, the five of them. So they have very contrastive characteristics and also personalities, making them so different from each other. And their individualities made the storyline funny as they basically were living in their own worlds, going against the typical Malay identity. Like, for instance, a son in a Malay community, he's supposed to be obedient and take care of his parents, but that's definitely not the case with Zakaria. He was very rebellious and he was considered to be the black sheep of the family, and nobody even liked him. And as for Husni, he was a successful architect, yet he was a closet gay. So, as readers or viewers, we can see how their distinct personalities were taking a toll on their personal life. For instance, Zakaria, his lifestyle was all over the place and he was always borrowing money from his siblings. And Husni, he was struggling to deal with the fact that he was a gay. So, they were portrayed in very contrastive and humorous ways as a satire towards the changing Malay culture and community. Next, there was resistance in terms of family dynamic, as they were definitely not the typical Malay family that we usually see in Malay dramas. Their distinct individualities made their family relationship to be more complex. For instance, when all of them met each other at Bapak's house, they were literally throwing insults and being sarcastic to each other. And the situation got even worse when all of them got possessed by Bappa one by one. And when this whole hilarious situation is going on, Jit Murad inserts some serious topic or some serious issues to be talked about. So this is where we know many revelations. For instance, like how Zakaria, he was molested by Nordin as a child, and Husni was a gay, and also Hortense Chia was Bapa's daughter due to his affair with Doreen Chia. And if you think about it, these are issues that we won't really talk in a family. But being the family that Jit Murad portrays in this play, of course they are going to talk about it. And the humor did not only make us laugh, it made us understand the characters on why they were behaving the way they did and why their family relationship is very complex. So it also acts as a social satire for the society to make them realize that the issues such as molestation, extramarital affairs, and also homosexuality is indeed happening in the community. But it's just that these issues often go unnoticed as no one is willing to talk about it. So as a whole, it can be said that humor is used in the form of satire to critique the individuals that are resisting their Malay identity in terms of individuality, family, and social dynamic in the overall theme of the play.
Thank you so much, Miss Faith, for introducing me wonderfully and for all the kind words that you said. And thank you, Miss Rubini, for explaining about the themes. I think it was very well explained. So now I will talk about humor in characters. How humor is used in characters in order for them to criticize Malay identity, just like how the viewer asked the question. So I'll just start off by saying that I will use this theory called incongruity resolution theory, where it is a humor theory which is used to analyze characters. Okay, so the theory is basically how humor responses are created in the moment we recognize the reality of a situation that we had previously perceived as strange or unfamiliar. Okay, so it basically means that a situation that will turn into like fun becoming funny when we realize how the reality of how incongruous or how it doesn't make sense at all, so it'll be funny. So that is what this theory is all about. Okay, so the characters that I'll be using is Husni, Azri and Michelle. So first two characters that I'm going to talk about is Husni and Azri. So the humor was used to criticize the Malay identity of really conforming to religious belief. Okay, so here humor was used to criticize because these two characters, they were going against the religious belief of the Malay communities. So they were going against their identity basically, because these two characters, they are boyfriends and they are gays. So according to the incongruity resolution theory, Azri acts as the comedian. Comedian is the character under the theory where who purposely acts incongruous in order for them to like be to create humor despite having a perfect understanding of the entire situation. Okay, this can be seen during the conversation that was taken place between Azri and Husni. Okay, in the third scene of the play, the part where Azri said, "You can't just give your father a grandson macam bagi dia rice cooker gitu. You have to be a father." So he deliberately said incongruous things to make it sound funny for the readers. Okay, another example of incongruous things that said by another character, which is Husni, is when he uses wit. Wit is also under the theory of incongruity, where it is used to say things that are like funny in order for it to like be the situation to be funny. So he said uh when Zakaria asked, "Have you done chick?" He said like, "Done what? Hatched one?" To in order for him to say he doesn't have like a sexual relationship with a female. So he said things that are like incongruous in order for it to be funny for the readers. So these examples of humor also directly criticizes the Malay identity of going against the religious belief, where like which is followed by the Malay community of being like gay and homosexual is like definitely against the Malay community, and also it's not a part of the Malay identity. Okay, the next character is Michelle. Michelle is basically a drag queen and also a transgender. The humor was used here to criticize the Malay identity of conforming to again religious belief and also conforming to tradition and customs of Malayness. So again, the theory under the theory, she became the comedian character where she deliberately acted incongruous even though she has perfect clarity of the situation. This happened when the part where she was talking to like she was talking in the club. She said that dia bukan upset because I drag, tapi because I tukar nama. Meletup orang tua tu. Kalau nak jadi perempuan, jadilah. Kalau ayah tak faham pun, Tuhan faham kehendak kau. Tapi kau dah hilang moral. Wah, ayah I speaking you. Apa nak jadi Michelle ni? Kau dah bukan Melayu ke? Okay, this whole part is like incongruous. And it's funny to listen to because she deliberately acted incongruous. And also it directly criticizes Malay identity because the whole hypocrisy of asking if she lost her Malay identity because she changed her name, but ignores the fact that she went against the Malay identity of following customs and tradition of the Malay community because she drags. So the hypocrisy, that is why it is the humor is said as like it directly criticizes the Malay identity here. So that is how humor is used in characters to directly criticize Malay identity of like conforming to religious beliefs and conforming to traditions and customs, like I've explained in this explanation. That is it for my part, and that's it for my explanation. Thank you so much. I'll pass it on to the next presenter.
Faith for having me in this show. So, in the playwright, we can see how Jit Murad used humor in the dialogue within the characters, like to critique the facets of Malay identities. So the first one, we can see how he critiqued the facet of Malay identity concerning on sexuality, whereby it is a big no-no for the Malay to be gay and and homosexual. Not only because it is wrong based on religion, but it is also frowned upon in society. So I think this issue has made the society very critical on this. And the dialogue that we can see in the scene 3, where Azri is making fun of Husni in the dialogue, when Husni said that, tak faham ke, I'm not going to be gay anymore, and Azri just like respond, and when Husni said like, just watch, Azri immediately say in a sarcastic way, yelah, you are right, depan biji mata I, you jadi straight. So I think this sarcasm is used in the dialogue to criticize the Malay society who is supporting heterosexuality and looking down on those who are not. Another example is in the same scene. We can also see how Jit Murad use humor in the dialogue to critique the Malay's identity when it comes to punctuality and discipline. In this scene, the dialogue between Azri and Husni also are showing how typical Malay, the way Malay people think. When Husni said he hopes that it is still not too late, and because he is half dressed, he is late to go to his work, to his office, and Azri replied like, baru 8:30 lah bang. Alah, kalau you masuk office lambat pun, siapa berani tegur you? So, in this dialogue, we can see how typical Malay thinking. Like when you are the boss, you can do whatever you want, you can come to work anytime you want. So, it is a smart way to use humor to critique this facet of Malay identity, because it is happening in our society, when the boss, like, you got the power, so you can do whatever you want, you can go in, go out according to your time, not being punctual. So I think it is really happen because as a boss, you are supposed to show a good example, but instead of that, in this dialogue, we can see how typical Malay people is. So I think it is a smart way for Jit Murad to use humor in dialogue to criticize facet of Malay identity, and I think it really works for the playwright.
Thank you to our guests for that very interesting presentation. Now, let's move on to the question and answer session. Question 1. Are there any characters that are portrayed as the perfect embodiment of the Malay identity?
Thank you for that question. So, in Jit Murad's play, there were really no characters that portrayed the perfect embodiment of Malay identity. And I think this is because the characters and also us as humans, we are not perfect. We all of us have flaws. So I think that is how Jit Murad makes them identifiably real and human. It makes us to be able to relate to the characters as well. In a way, the characters, they portray us, they reflect us and the society. Because if you think about it, in a way, we are all trying to fight against something. We are trying to forget our past, and some of us have a love-hate relationship between our parents. And I think that's where Jit Murad, he shows the sincerity and realness in his characters. And maybe that could be his intention, to show that nobody is perfect and we are all trying to move on and learn something in life. So that is why I believe that no characters in his play were portrayed as the perfect embodiment of Malay identity, because they are all trying to learn and they are all trying to move on from their past.
Thank you for your answer, Ms. Rubini. Question 2. Would you say that humor is effective in critiquing the Malay identity as compared to, let's say, if the play was more serious?
And I think to use humor in the playwright is more effective rather than to make it more serious, because I think in this industry nowadays we are looking something that is entertaining, but we can like take something positive. It have moral, it touch the reality of the society. So I think it is a smart way to insert some humor in the playwright, because we don't want just like as the readers, as the viewers, we don't want like just see something common or something very usual. So to insert something, to put sarcasm, something that is sarcastic, it can attract the audience, but at the same time reach you know it reach the audience about the reality of the societies nowadays.
Well said, Miss Shu. Thank you so much. Next, two of the most interesting characters in this play are Husni and Michelle, who are very much alike in terms that they challenge the idea of heterosexuality. Now, can any one of you elaborate a little more on the Malay identity in terms of sexuality?
Thank you so much, Miss Faith, for that very wonderful question of yours. Well, you asked about Malay identity in terms of sexuality. Okay, so basically, sexuality in Malay identity, there's only heterosexuality. There is no whichever that is other than heterosexuality. For example, like homosexuality or anything other than that, or like the LGBTQ community, they are perceived and seen as immoral. Okay, like you said, Husni and Azri, they are interesting characters. Why are they interesting? Because they are the odd one out. They are homosexuals. Of course, they are like perceived and seen as like the odd one out. They're like, because they don't follow they are not part of the Malay identity, because homosexuality is not part of the Malay identity. So in terms of sexuality, homosexuality is definitely not in the Malay identity. Malay identity in terms of sexuality is only heterosexuality. Okay, other than that are considered illegal and immoral in the Malaysian context and also in the Malay identity. Thank you so much.
I must say, I really do agree with you, Miss Sri. Thank you so much for your answer. I think one thing that interests me as a Malaysian audience is the use of code mixing and code switching in the play. Now tell me, how does this contribute to creating humor?
Yes, you are right, Faith. There was a lot of code switching and code mixing that was occurring throughout the whole play. So, although the play was written in English, there was a lot of usage of Bahasa Melayu words and also sentences. So, one reason why code switching and code mixing occurred in the play is to reduce tension. So, as we know, all the characters, they are very distinct in personalities, and whenever they meet each other they always throw insult to each other. They were always being sarcastic. So this is a way to reduce tension among the characters, because they are all so different, and whenever they come together we never know what might happen. So Jit Murad, he uses humor in between these siblings as a way to reduce the tension among them. And also, whenever we are talking on a serious topic, like for example, Michelle, she was talking about her past and her life to Husni and Zakaria when they were talking together at a launch. So she was talking about her life and the struggles that she went through because she was a drag. And in that serious situation, she tried to be funny and make the whole situation hilarious to reduce the tension that might occur there. She was trying to move away from the seriousness by talking about her own life, so she tried to talk about it in a very humorous way. So that is why I think there was a lot of code switching and also code mixing was happening throughout the play.
Alright, now for the last question. What do you think is so problematic about the Malay identity that Jit Murat had to create a satire to criticize it?
Thank you so much, Miss Faith, for another interesting question. Well, I don't want to say that there is something wrong with the Malay identity, of course, because I don't have a say, because I'm not a Malay myself. But being like a third person coming from a different community, I could say that I could say one thing where um, the world is developing and it's advancing, and there are certain things that are happening on earth which is like that goes against our beliefs and our ideas and our religion and things like that. So maybe coming from the author's opinion, I'm not sure, like I'm just assuming that he might have thought that there are certain things that maybe should change. People should perceive and receive and accept people that are like different, and even though it is not conforming to one's identity, like for example in this case Malay's identity, and in a very specific way in this particular play, maybe like homosexuality or things like um, going against a tradition and things like that. So that is why maybe he thought that it's very hypocritical, so he had to make a satire to criticize that. That is what I think. I might be wrong, but that is what I personally think. So thank you so much.
I'm impressed. Thank you, Miss Sri. And that will be a wrap as well to our question and answer session. Thank you so much to our guests for everything that you have shared on this show for us. Just a quick recap today, we have talked about how Murad'S play uses humor to critique the Malay identity and various facets of it. Today we talked about various facets of the Malay identity, such as individuality, family and social dynamic, religious beliefs, sexuality, discipline and punctuality, and we looked closely at how humor is found in the characters, their dialogues, and the theme. And I think that today's discussion is very good and very relevant because this is how our modern day Malay society is, and it cannot get any much more current. Well, that's all the time we have for today, so catch us next week. I'm your host Faith Yo, and good night everybody.